You think you know Norse mythology. You know the names: Thor, the thunder god; Odin, the wise father; Loki, the clever trickster. But what we've inherited are only fragments, written down centuries later by Christian scribes who reshaped the old stories into something tamer, something safer. The original myths were far more brutal. They were survival stories, messy, violent, full of betrayal and gods who suffered and bled. They weren't meant to comfort, only to prepare you for storms and for the chaos beneath the surface of the world. So if you're ready to see what lies beneath the bedtime legends, keep watching, because this is about what happens when the sky cracks open and something older looks back. Welcome to Vortex Mythology, where we go deeper into the legends you thought you knew. Before we begin, like this video and subscribe if you're ready for darker truths, forgotten gods, and the stories that still echo through time. Now, mythology is far from black and white. It twists and turns, evolving over time. These are some of our favorite older versions of Norse mythology. But maybe you know tales that go back further still. So please, feel free to share in the comments your knowledge, interpretations, and understandings. On that note, let us begin. The modern image of Thor as a noble, muscular protector with a sense of humor and a heart of gold bears little resemblance to the figure found in the ancient Norse texts. The Thor of myth isn't polished or heroic in the way we recognize. He isn't a champion of ideals. He is a force, raw and relentless. Thor's battles were never about glory. He fought because the world demanded it. The jötnar, called giants, but more accurately, ancient forces of chaos, constantly threatened the fragile balance between order and destruction. And whenever that balance tipped, it was Thor who stood in the way, wielding Mjolnir, not as a symbol of justice, but as a weapon of survival. His power was absolute, but he wasn't distant. Thor belonged to the people. He was the thunder over farmland, the downpour that broke a drought. He was trusted to hold the line when everything else failed. He didn't teach, nor did he lead. He endured. And in the myths, that was enough. He is not the god who saves the world. He is the one who slows its fall. But if Thor held the line, Loki was the one testing it. We like to think of Loki as a clever rogue, chaotic but charming, the mischief maker with a grin and a loophole. But the older stories tell a colder truth. Loki? Not just a trickster. He's corrosion in god form. He helps when it suits him. He sabotages when it matters most. And the damage he causes is almost never small. This is the god who fathers monsters. Fenrir is a giant wolf so powerful, the gods had to trick him into wearing magical chains. But even those couldn't hold him forever. At the end of time, he breaks free and kills Odin. Jörmungandr, the world serpent, is so huge he wraps around the earth and bites his own tail. His venom poisons the sea, and his surfacing marks the beginning of Ragnarok. And Hel, the sister, rules the underworld. She's half alive, half dead, and oversees the souls of those who don't go to Valhalla. Her realm isn't punishment. It's just the end. Loki's the architect of Baldur's death, the most beloved of the gods, killed by a blind man's hand with a sprig of mistletoe. Harmless until it wasn't. Loki's genius is terrifying because it's without allegiance. One day he's solving problems. The next, he is the problem. There's no redemption arc, no final moment of grace, just brilliance turned against its own kind. And whenever he lies, he does it to unravel fate, and he never once flinches. And where do the gods send the dead once the chaos begins? That's where Valhalla and the truth about the afterlife come in. Modern pop culture treats Valhalla like the Viking version of heaven. Eternal glory, endless feasts, a warrior's paradise. But that's not the full story. Not even close. He chose those he found useful. Fighters, survivors, and potential soldiers for the final war. Just the right tools for the job. Some of the dead went to Folkvanger, a hall ruled by the goddess Freyja, who received her own share of the fallen. But most passed quietly into Hell, a shadowy realm of silence and cold. This was no punishment. It was simply the end. There was no judgment system, no tally of good versus evil. You didn't earn your place. You were chosen only by fate or favor. Even Valhalla itself was preparation. The warriors there trained for Ragnarok, the end of days. A final battle they weren't expected to survive. So no, Valhalla wasn't a reward for being good. It was a draft notice. And if you weren't picked, that wasn't a failure. That was life and death for most. And behind that quiet sorting of souls stood one figure, always watching, always planning. But not the Odin you've been told about. The popular image of Odin as a gentle bearded sage, an all-seeing grandfather figure who watches over the world with quiet wisdom, is far removed from the figure described in the oldest Norse texts. That version of Odin is a product of later storytelling, reshaped by poets and softened by centuries, because in reality, it's colder, far more calculating, and endlessly dangerous. He is a god of war, of death, of riddles and secrets whispered between ravens. His pursuit of knowledge is obsessive, and sometimes even self-destructive, but even more often at the cold-hearted cost of anyone and everyone around him. Not only disposable mortals, but even his own family. He tears out his own eye to gain a glimpse of the future, then sacrifices himself on the world tree, wounded by a spear, hanging for 9 nights in exchange for ancient magic. Odin's collection of fallen warriors in Valhalla isn't an act of grace. He's not recruiting the heroes, assembling an army for a final battle he knows is coming. Ragnarok is inevitable, and Odin's every move is made with that in mind. This is a god who changes shape and name without warning, who manipulates kings and killers alike, who sends his own followers into ruin for glimpses of truths they'll never understand. What he offers, if anything, is knowledge broken into fragments, delivered at steep cost. To imagine Odin as a guardian is to miss the point entirely. He simply studies the world and then measures it, and when the end approaches, because he will not be there to save anyone, he'll already be deciding who might still be useful. And those close to him, Thor and Loki, simply pieces on a board set to clash. The idea that Thor and Loki grew up together, raised as siblings, only to be torn apart by fate, is a modern invention, shaped by comic books and cinema. The original myths offer no such bond. Thor is Odin's son, born of divine lineage and shaped by purpose. Loki, on the other hand, is Odin's sworn blood brother, bound not by family, but by an ancient oath. The connection was forged in ritual, and it carried with it a deep, uneasy tension. They did travel together often. Their names appear side by side in many stories, but their companionship was anything but friendly. Loki mocked and provoked, constantly needling at Thor's pride, and Thor, never known for patience, responded with threats and fury. In one tale, Loki insults every god at a feast, including Thor's wife, until Thor rises in a rage, ready to kill him then and there. When Loki finally crosses the line, engineering Balder's death, unleashing monstrous children into the world, and breaking the fragile balance the gods had tried to maintain, it is Thor who helps to bring him down. Loki is bound in chains beneath the earth, punished out of necessity. Their alliance was a temporary arrangement between powers that pulled in opposite directions, fire and storm, circling each other until the day one would finally fall. But sometimes the chaos wasn't in the battle. Sometimes it started with something as simple as a stolen lock of hair. You've probably heard the story. Loki sneaks in while Sif sleeps and cuts off her golden hair. Thor finds out. Loki panics. He gets the dwarves to craft her a new set, magical and gleaming. And somehow, that's where most retellings stop. A prank gone wrong. A mythological haircut. Sif's hair represented something sacred. The golden fields of grain that sustained life. She wasn't merely Thor's wife. She embodied fertility, the harvest, and the survival of entire communities through long, brutal winters. When Loki severed her hair, it became an offense against nature itself. Thor's fury was never personal. Loki had disrupted the balance of the world. To fix it, Loki turns to dwarves, setting off a chain of gifts and curses that define the gods. Sif speaks little in the surviving myths, but her role is anything but minor. Her silence hides a deeper presence, one that anchors the divine realm to the rhythms of the earth. She represents the land, and when the land is violated, you know by now that even the gods are forced to respond. And that balance between destruction and renewal shows up again in one of Thor's most unusual traditions. Tangrisnir and Tangnjoster. The names alone feel like thunder rolling over stone. These were no ordinary animals. They pulled Thor's chariot across the sky. They carried the storm, and every night Thor did something unthinkable. He killed them, roasted them, and ate them. And every morning he brought them back to life. But the ritual had limits. Each resurrection depended on the bones remaining untouched. One cracked bone, one break in the cycle, and the magic failed. In one tale, a boy hungry for marrow splits a bone open. The next day, the goat returns crippled. Thor is furious, not over the meat, but over the broken law. Because even gods can't cheat the rules of the world they are bound to. This story isn't just strange folklore, it's a clear warning. Power doesn't mean freedom. Not even divine power. The resurrection only works if the pattern is respected and the sacred cycle is held. But not everything followed rules or cycles. Especially Thor's dealings with the giants, where chaos and kinship often looked the same. It's tempting to picture Thor as the eternal enemy of giants, a divine force of order smashing chaos again and again. And that's true to a point. But the line between god and monster in Norse myth, it's never clean. Thor's own mother, Jörd, was a giantess. So was Jarl Saxa, the lover who bore him a son, Magni. He dines with the giants, sleeps with them, and even teams up with them when the world calls for it. The jötnar were nature unshaped. Wild storms, deep mountains, ancient fears that never die. Sometimes you had to destroy them. Sometimes you had to live with them. And sometimes, as Thor did, you had to become part of them. His hammer may have cracked their skulls, but his bloodline runs thick with their power. In Norse cosmology, everything exists in tension. There are no perfect sides, no holy wars, just an uneasy balance between what is and what might destroy it. Eventually, that balance gives way, and what follows is Ragnarok. Fire rains from the sky, gods fall, wolves swallow the sun, the sea swells with monsters, and the ground splits beneath the weight of everything breaking. That's Ragnarok, the end of all things. But it's not the end like we think of it. It's not death. It's only transformation. The Norse didn't believe in a single apocalypse. They believed in cycles. Ragnarok was one chapter, violent but necessary. A purge to make space for something new. When the battle is over and the gods are dead, a new sun rises, the land heals, and two humans, hidden in the branches of a sacred tree, emerge into the light. Balder, once killed, returns from the underworld, and the story begins again, a scarred one. What was broken won't be forgotten, but from that wreckage, life endures. The gods don't win, they don't lose, they fall, and the world changes shape around their absence. But before the final collapse, there were warnings. One of the clearest came not from a battlefield, but from a fishing boat. It sounds like a strange little tale. Thor disguises himself as a fisherman, rows out to sea with a giant, baits a massive hook with an ox head, and waits. And then the sea moves. Jörmungandr, the world serpent, takes the bait. This is cosmic tension wrapped in a coil of myth. Jörmungandr is no ordinary beast. He encircles the entire world, tail in mouth. He is a boundary incarnate, the edge of everything. And when Thor hauls him up, the waves thrash like the earth itself is trying to breathe. The moment freezes, Serpent rising. But then the giant panics, cuts the line, and the serpent sinks back into the deep. It was fate, momentarily interrupted, because Thor and Jörmungandr are destined to kill each other at Ragnarok. This was a rehearsal. A glimpse into the ending they both knew was coming, and a near miss that shook the world. The myths don't say if Thor was angry. They don't have to, because everyone knew when the hammer fell next time, it wouldn't miss. Because that's what Norse mythology gives us. Warnings wrapped in story, and glimpses of gods staring down their own deaths. and stepping forward anyway. They lie, they betray, they die, and sometimes they come back. Norse mythology isn't moral, nor safe. Well, certainly not by our modern standards. But in its darkness, it reveals something deeply human. Stories that endure to prepare us, and stories that shape the lives of the living as strongly as any moral system out there, whether we deem it moral or not. Please do subscribe for more mythologies that go deeper, and stories that challenge what we think we know. Comment with the gods or legends you want us to explore next, because the old gods still have stories left to tell, and we're just getting started. Until next time, keep questioning and keep digging deeper. You never know what you might find.